Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you will receive alerts when there are new episodes. Go get it.
That's what I tell them. I've been grinding for so long, I wake up and chase my goals. I go out and I go get it. Hot or cold, that's all I know. I don't succeed, then I don't breathe. Success, what does it mean? If I conquer all my goals, then I'm living out my dream. Dig deep, go out and get it. Success Chronicles. Compete until it's finished. Success Chronicles. Go take care of your business. Success Chronicles. It's deeper than just winning. Success Chronicles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chip Baker coming to you with another episode of the Success Chronicles. Today, we're here with Coach Braxton Harris, a great guy with a great background, doing some great things. And I'm so thankful to have him on this episode of the Success Chronicles. So first, thanks so much, Coach, for taking the time to interview.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Anytime we get a chance to tell our story and tell what God's doing in our life, that's an easy yes right there for us.
Hey, since you've already went church on me, I'm gonna go church on you too. Amen. No. Well, let's dive into it. I know off air we talked a little bit about your life story and your background, but if you don't mind sharing your story with the audience and track your story till now.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, kind of like you and I were visiting earlier, is that, both my parents were educators. My dad's a high school football coach. My mom was an elementary teacher. She kind of had some different roles in the education system. And so, our really lives really went around a couple things. It was, church and school were a big part of that. And then athletics was a part of that. And my dad's a high school football coach, kind of like I was telling you, is, man, I did not know that anybody went and did anything on a Friday night in the fall besides a high school football game. That was crazy to me. Like, what else would you want to be doing besides that? I was the snot-nosed kid underneath the bleachers, probably dirty from head to toe playing, or I was the ball boy. I remember when I got to be the ball boy, Chuck, man, I was so excited about being the ball boy, man. I think I only got ran over 3 times for not paying attention. You can't do that anymore. You got to be a certain age to be a ball boy. That's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
But I remember as a ball boy on wet games that we'd have that trash bag, and you put that detergent or something, that nasty smelling stuff, and then you shake the balls to try to get them dry every time. But man, I love doing that, and we did that as a family. And then you do that, and then you'd be in church on Sunday morning, and my parents were very involved in that. And one of the things I'm very thankful with my dad, being in coaching, is that I never felt like he missed anything because he was a coach. I'll hear people say all the time, man, it must have been tough. Your dad was a football coach. It must have been tough being away from him. And I remember the first time somebody said that, I was like, I don't remember it that way. Like, I don't remember missing anything. And so one of the things that I'm very fortunate, my parents showed me not only how to have a godly relationship with Christ and how that looks, but then also how to be a godly husband and a godly father, that my dad was able to show me that you can do both, and that you can do those things and do them well. And I think that's something in our society, I don't know how you feel about it, but that's something I always kind of struggle with. Can you be the best that you want to be at your profession? But man, I want to be a good dad, and I want to be a good husband in those spots too.
And that's what's most important.
That's right. That's right. And so for me, you talking about, what you're doing here with the success podcast that you build, and man, success was not worth it for me if I had to give up those things, in those spots. And so, I got a great example of that growing up. And so, kind of like I was telling you, is that, man, I kind of joked around all the time. I was a drug baby. I was drugged to church, drugged to Sunday night church, drugged to youth choir, drugged to RAs. And if the church doors were open, vacation Bible school, everything. I mean, we were there. And I appreciate that more and more the older that I get, because when I'm having to make decisions as a leader of a football program, or even the leader for my household, that's where my baseline goes back to. Yeah. What does Christ say in that spot? And I think that's a huge positive that I'm very thankful with, is that I have that baseline. Because if you don't have that baseline, Chip, where's your baseline go to? Does it go what the world says? Does it go what so-and-so says? Does it and I kind of think that's the whole purpose of what you're doing here is defining success in those spots. But for me, it all goes back to what Christ wants for us. And so that's a big part of who I was. And I felt like I had the greatest childhood in the whole wide world. I loved being a coach's kid. There's nothing else I'd rather have done. That's for sure.
That's good stuff. Well, let's hit on your career, Coach. Talk to us a little bit about your career and what you've done and where you are now.
I started off. I went to Mary Hardin Baylor, University of Mary Hardin Baylor, out of high school, and I played there for Coach Fredenberg.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely was. It was a great experience for me. And, a lot of people, high school kids that go into college, we all kind of have this perception of what do we think college football is supposed to look like and how our story is supposed to play out. And I thought being a quarterback and being an all-district player out of high school and all those things, man, I'm going to go be the man, and that wasn't exactly how God's plan was for my life, in that next chapter of my life. And so, I to be honest with you, I struggled, making the depth chart, there at Mary Hardin Baylor. And so then when you go through those as a player, you start doubting things. You start saying, well, is this where God wants me to be? Is this where I'm supposed to be? And those are things that I went through at an early age in those spots. And God kept saying over and over and over to me, Chip, just keep staying with it. Just keep staying with it. Keep staying with it. What we kind of kid ourselves all the time is that if we just work hard enough that we can achieve anything. I don't necessarily buy into that. You can achieve the things that God wants to allow you to achieve in those spots. His plan for me was not to be the starting quarterback, but it was to meet my wife there.
Yeah.
It was to start coaching there. And I got done playing and with my eligibility, and I got an opportunity to coach receivers. At 23 years old, I was in charge of a position group out of a top 4 program in the nation in college football. Man, I did not know what the heck I was doing, man. But I got that opportunity because God kept saying, be faithful, keep working, keep being where you're at. Our world, and you see it at the high school level, even now it's trickled down to, especially in the Houston area where you're at, man, if I don't like this coach, well, I'm going to transfer to this school. Well, if I don't like what I'm hearing here, I'm going to transfer to this school. And we've seen that in college, but now you're seeing it almost even more in high school in some of those places. And, that was something that God and my family had taught me when I was young. Man, you don't quit. No. Your last name is Harris. You don't quit. Yeah. You may not like it, but you're going to finish it, and then you can make a decision, but you're going to finish it, And so I was able to do that. So I started coaching there at a very young age. And I spent 3 years there getting my master's and coaching the wide receivers and working with our recruiting department there. And invaluable experience because I got to learn as a player and as a coach's kid, you always think football. That stuff, X's and O's, really don't matter. You know what I mean? It's about, can you get one of the things Coach Fredenberg always said, he said, coaching is not X's and O's. It's about, can you change somebody's behavior? That's what a coach does. He changes the behavior, and that was a great experience for me. And I learned how to be held accountable there. I learned how to work. One of the things I remember him telling me, Braxton, people will follow you when they see how hard you work and when you serve them, and I learned that at an early age because, when you first start getting into coaching, you think it's all about you, and then you got to figure out that you don't know very much. And then you can really start learning once you figure out you don't know very much. And so I got that opportunity with Coach Fredenberg, and he let a young guy like myself be able to have some of those opportunities, and it's an invaluable experience. From there, I went to Waco High School. I was a secondary coach there for 1 season. Danny Ramsey, who's now the offensive coordinator over at Brenham High School. He was the head football coach there at Waco High School, and he hired me to coach the secondary. And he hired a young guy that had a bunch of receiver experience, didn't have much secondary experience, but he said, man, if you can coach, you can coach. And so he let me go coach a group of guys. And man, we were talented. We had 5 or 6 D1 guys. Andrew Billings, he went on to play at Baylor. Yeah. Will Hines went on to play at Arkansas in that group. We had a couple kids that went to FCS level schools. There were some guys in that room. And man, I'll never forget, probably the takeaway from there is, and those guys at Waco High, they loved playing football. They just loved it. And I'll never forget how much just passion that they had for the game and how much they loved it so much. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to be hired at Texas Lutheran University. Danny Padron hired me there. His son and I had played college football together at Mary and Baylor. And so that was kind of our connection. And he got the head coaching job down at TLU and offered me an opportunity to go down there and coach the defensive ends. So again, something I had never done in my life. I'd gone from quarterbacks to receivers to secondary to defensive ends. Man, you talk about a fish out of water. Man, I had to learn fast. But got a great opportunity to coach the defensive ends there. And then able, after my first year there, to the defense coordinator left and got an opportunity to be a coordinator with a co-coordinator with another guy there on staff, and I coached the linebackers and recruiting coordinator, and then eventually I was assistant head coach. And so got a ton of opportunities there that, Chip, I look back on and go, man, what the heck was Coach Padron thinking about letting me do that,
To live you.
Yeah, there you go, man. That's right. Come on now. I like it. And so we were able to be a part of that, and that was a great experience there. And we're very fortunate. We took over a program that had lost, 2 years in a row. They were 0 for the year before Coach Padron got there. And then we went on a 3-year run where we had 8 wins, 9 wins, and 9 wins, and fortunate enough to get into the NCAA playoffs, which is probably one of the hardest things in all of college football to do, is get into the Division III national playoffs. Fortunate enough to do that there. And then 3 years ago, I had the honor to be named the head football coach here at Payne University. And so at that time, I was 31 years old. And so I think I was told I was one of the youngest college head football coaches in the nation. And, man, I tell you, I feel like it, that's for sure, because I don't think I had a clue what I was getting into. And we've learned along the way, that's for sure.
It's awesome, Coach.
So it's been fun, though, that's for sure.
And that's what it's about. It's about living and learning and, just doing the best you can at the moment. I think when you maximize the opportunities, kind of like what you explained, it allows you to be proud of what you accomplished. But then, it allows you to also understand that, hey, I got some work to do,
right.
So it keeps you humble, but also staying hungry, right? But like 4 O's, hungry.
Well, I was that guy. I learned my mistakes on Sunday after watching the film on Saturday. And I remember telling a kid that played for me my first year there at TLU, played linebacker. He came back 3 years later. I looked at me and I go, man, I am so sorry. I was such a bad coach for you. I should have been so much better, because you had to be humbled to see those things. And as a coach, one of the things I've always been taught is either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you turn on that film on Sunday and that kid's not making that play, and that kid is doing everything in his power to make the play, then it's my job as a coach. I got to get him in a position to make that play. And some of those things you learn the hard way. Man, that was not as good as I thought it was, in some of those spots.
Well, let's hit on success. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit. What's your definition of success?
Man, that's a great question. That's a phenomenal question. And I think for me, it kind of goes back to what I always talk is, what is your standard? What is your kind of litmus test? What is your measuring stick? Where does it all start from you? Because I think that you have to all have a starting place. If not, you're never going to know where you're going to end up in this deal. And so for me, I go back in my life, it's always been going back to the Bible, and gone and looked what Christ said success was. Probably one of my favorite stories in the Bible is the parable in Matthew chapter 25, when the master is leaving and he has his 3 servants, and he gives his 3 servants X amount of money while he's gone and says, hey, go to work while I'm gone. And then the first one comes back and he doesn't do anything with his money. He just sits on it. He takes the safe route. He doesn't work at it. He just holds on to what he's got. And, to me, that's kind of that same guy in coaching that won't take chances, that won't take risks, that won't say, I can do that. Now, I may be really uncomfortable doing that, but I can do that, And then the second guy in the deal, he takes that talent and he doubles his money because he works his tail off for it, And then when the master comes back, he talks about there in Matthew 25, verse 23, it says, well done, good and faithful servant, For me, Chip, if the things that I'm doing and the things that I'm working for, if Christ can look down and say, hey, Braxton, well done, good and faithful servant, then that's success, and if I can look at my life and say, what am I doing today? And what I did today, would Christ look at that and say, Braxton, well done, good and faithful servant? And if I can look myself in that and say, I think God would say, well done, Braxton, then that's success. I mean, that's absolute success. And that's the whole purpose of my life in that spot is it should be pointed towards that. Because I think that ultimately the goal is when we're all dead and gone, that we get to heaven and God says, well done, and so I don't necessarily think that you have to win a certain amount of football games. Don't get me wrong, I like winning football games. So we ain't just singing Kumbaya over here, holding hands, right? But at the end of the day, if my success is solely measured, if that is all it's measured off is what is on that scoreboard, man, that's kind of silly. I mean, it's kind of silly at the end of this deal. If you took a poll of 100 people, I bet you 95 of them couldn't tell you 4 years ago who won the Super Bowl.
I agree with you.
That's the biggest game in the world, right?
Yep.
Biggest football game in the world. And after 3 years ago, they can't tell you who won. If my whole being is about winning a football game, then man, that's just not what it's all about, in my opinion.
That's it. Well, before we get off, if you don't mind sharing with the audience where they can go follow you and check you out and show you some support, Coach.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We try to use as much as we can on social media. And so I'll have to look this up, man. I got my phone here, so I don't even know what it is. So I apologize. But you can follow me on Twitter at Coach_B Harris. And if you can type in right there, you can type in HPU football, and we have some stuff there that you can follow. We'd love to be able to, if you got kids out there that want to be a part of a good college football program, I think that Howard Payne University is a program that's on the rise that truly wants to give kids a Christian higher education and that value that. And I think it kind of goes back to kind of, Chip, what you and I've been talking about is, man, why can't you be both? Why can't you be the best at both?
That's it, Coach. Well, again, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to interview with the Success Chronicles, and I wish you continued success.
All right. Hey, you guys have a good one and be safe down in Houston.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. We'll see you next time. God bless.
Go get it.